Whether you like it or not, there is an inherent risk with our love for two wheels. That could be law enforcement, insurance issues, crashing, or anything else for that matter. Now, we are not legal experts, but we've teamed up with our friends at White Dalton to bring you another series of free legal advice. Hello and welcome back to another Legal Corner. Gavin, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Today it's going to be slightly different. We've got some videos to show you. We're going to start off with one in particular, but today is all about the state of our blooming roads and highways claims. Isn't that right, Gav?
Yeah. So I think we can all agree, state of the roads at the moment, appalling.
Yes, all agreed, yeah.
And also that it impacts us more than any other road user.
Yes.
Those of us on two wheels, apart from GSAs, of course, the BMWs just go through anything. But yeah, we've got a video to show the viewers, and I'll run through the law on highways accidents, highways claims, what to do if you're unlucky enough to have an accident, and give you some advice.
And I will start off by saying, I'm sure you have some legal things to say as well, Gav, but I don't want this comment section to be full of negativity. And this is the beauty of what we're doing here. This is White Dalton Solicitors helping out other bikers get justice they deserve. So I don't want to target in particular riders. This is just an example of what we're going to show you. So should we roll VT, or do you want to have anything else?
Yeah, no, we'll roll the video. I guess the only thing I want to add to that is this could happen to any of us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We love bikes. We love riding, and any one of us could come a cropper. So the video's it doesn't make for nice viewing, but I think it's important to see how things can go wrong, and I'll do my best to give the viewers a guide on the law. Brilliant.
Okay, so what we have here, you describe it.
Well, it looks like just an ordinary A road.
Yes.
It's a little bit shocking because parts of the road are in absolutely terrible condition,
which I didn't notice straight away. I was just looking at the rider.
Yeah. And I mean, look, that's the great thing about cameras these days. If you look at the quality of the camera and what it's picking up, it really gives the viewer an indication as to the holes, the breakup of the road itself. So sadly, this biker, through no fault of his own, ends up with his front wheel going into a rut.
Yes.
And it looks like a deep, long enough rut to unsettle the bike.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of whiskey throttle as well.
Definitely.
So whether it's unseated him to an extent that he's then got whiskey throttle, but in the latter part, most definitely.
Yes.
I think that's one of the issues he's faced, sadly, when he leaves the road.
And that MV, for those of you ridden, I mean, they're not the easiest bikes to ride. The throttles are very sensitive, and if there was any bike that you probably not best being on in this situation, it's probably that bike. As harsh as it sounds, the throttle's so light and so arcade-like that as soon as you're in that position, then things do go wrong, and unfortunately it did go wrong for this guy.
Yeah. It reminds me of the early MT-09s. I think they had a really snatchy throttle, and later on they sort of smoothed it out with some software updates. So if I deal with the law itself, okay, because if you are a biker and you are unlucky enough to find yourself in this situation, have you got a remedy? The answer is yes. Okay? Your remedy is against the local authority.
Okay.
Now, not everyone might be with me on this and go, well, if you hit a pothole and you fell off, why are you suing someone? Well, the fact is this. The government in the UK sets aside a certain amount of money for local authorities to use to keep the road in good repair.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you want to be a real nerd and find it, it's Section 41 of the Highways Act.
Yeah.
So that says that a public road must be maintained by the local authority, and that's their duty. That's what they must do.
It's not obvious, is it?
They don't spend money on bingo halls.
Well, they do.
Well, they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, they should spend the money on keeping roads in good repair.
Yeah.
Now, I think I need to be absolutely clear on this. They don't have to make it Bowling Green smooth.
No.
Okay. So that would be to make it a counsel of perfection, if I could use that as a term. They must use the money to maintain the road, and of course, roads they're not always perfect.
No.
You know, we've got adverse camber. You know, some areas might suffer more with adverse weather, and in fact, reminds me a few years back, Beast from the East,
Yes.
where the roads just got peppered.
Yeah.
And then we had a huge period of time where people were really unhappy, and the local authorities had to get themselves in order and really start patching up the roads. So this biker, unlucky enough to hit this rut.
It's a big rut.
It's a big rut.
Yeah, you wouldn't look out of place at a motocross track.
No, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I made the quip about GSA. I suspect GSA would just float through that, but
a big stiff MV Augusta
won't.
Yeah,
you know, so he's been caught by this, and then it's unsettled the bike, and then sadly he has this whiskey throttle and loses control of the machine. So his remedy. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, is it? Should we mention that he was quite a new rider? Is that something to consider?
Only so as far as the law is concerned, that wouldn't necessarily come into it, because
it was more for these guys, just to sort of. I think some people would look at this and go, well, he could have avoided it, but in that situation, like you said, you're in a situation you think you're going to avoid it, and all of a sudden because the road, again, when I looked at it again, that road is in a really shit state.
Yeah.
Not just for that rut, but before it as well, which I think is why he tries to swerve around something else and then ends up in that particular rut. So
yeah. Well, okay, right. There's two really good points there. So the first one you made reference to, let's just say he'd been a learner rider, got an L plate on. That doesn't absolve the local authority for having to maintain the highway. So there's no defence for them to say, well, you were a novice rider and you're partly to blame.
Yeah.
And the second point from that, actually, you made a really good point, because you can see from the video there's some really bad rutting in the road earlier on. If you are going to bring a claim against a local authority, you have to be absolutely sure and precise as to what defect caused the accident.
Right, okay.
I've been to court on this before, where the biker turned up and he's got, the road's a patchwork. And when the judge put to him, can you identify the defect which knocked you off? Was it pothole 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5? He couldn't answer. And he lost on that particular point.
Really? Just by being slightly vague?
Absolutely,
really?
Yeah. I mean, you could look at it and go, that's really harsh, but it wasn't a judgment that we could appeal and we could win. So from a lawyer's perspective, this is where cameras come in, and they come into their own, because with the greatest of respect, if that was you or that was me and we fell off, if you're tumbling down the road on your head, you won't have the wherewithal to say it was that defect which knocked me off.
True, but if you've got the beauty of a camera,
you can replay it and you can go, it was that particular piece, that took me off my bike. So you've got the Highways Act, and therein lies the potential to bring a claim. Now, Al, let me tell you this. I've been in the law for coming up 20 years now. Yeah. In my 20 years...
You are the law.
I am the law. In my 20 years of practice... Anytime I've dealt with a local authority action, I can tell you they've just denied it. I think I can probably think of one case where they admitted it out of all the hundreds of cases that I've dealt with. So I guess what I'm getting at is don't expect an easy ride.
No, okay.
This is quite a serious accident, but if we go back to, let's say he stayed on the bike but he buckled his wheel.
Yes.
And you say, well, that's a £200 wheel. I want £200 from the local authority. You can bet your bottom dollar they'll
laugh at you.
They'll just say, no, we've got liability.
Yeah.
Now, what they will do time and time again is they will look at another part of the Highways Act called Section 58. Now, Section 58, if you're a nerd like me and you go and read it, actually deals with their defence. So they may have a defence if they were not on notice of the defect. Okay? And that's fair if you think about it, because... if they had no idea that rut was in the road, then why should they be liable to repay someone for hitting it? Now, this rests solely on the local authority and their highways inspectors. So every local authority will pay a highway inspector. In fact, you've probably seen them on your journeys. They'll have amber flashing beacons. Yeah. Some of the
painting the roads.
Really smart vehicles will actually have GPS fitted, and they will drive a road at a slow speed and identify the defects. Others, they'll walk it. So if it's safe enough to walk, they'll walk along and record them. Now, this commonly becomes a contention for a claimant because, with the greatest of respect, the highway inspector, if he walked along and spotted every defect and had it all fixed, they'd have spent their budget in 3 weeks. So there is probably an element of the highway inspector will only repair defects that are dangerous and that need to be filled. And different roads will have different timescales for an inspection. So if we're talking about the M25 or a really busy A road that has tens of thousands of vehicles on it every day, they will need to inspect that a damn sight more than they would a country road. National speed limit country road that's used by tens or hundreds of cars every year. So the first thing will be the inspection regime, how often it needs to be done. When I say it becomes contentious, I mean here, clear as day, he's hit a rut in the road.
Yes.
If he brought a claim against the local authority would go back in their records, and I'm hoping they would have spotted that. If they didn't, it begs the question, what is the highway inspector doing? If he hasn't picked up on something that large, what else hasn't he picked up on? And in fact, is he doing a good enough job? Now, at trial, that's where we end up butting heads. So the claimant will say there's a defect there, it was dangerous, and the highway authority might say, no, it wasn't dangerous, part one, or part two, if it was, we didn't know about it. And that they might use those two as a basis of their defence. Now, strangely, the lower the value of the case, so let's just say we're talking about a buckled wheel, if they deny it, and I've advised lots of bikers along this lines, if the claim is less than £10,000, that's a small claim. So the biker can sue the local authority for his buckled wheel, and chances are the local authority would look at that and think, well, if we need to instruct our lawyers and get a barrister to have a trial, it's cheaper just to pay the biker. And the number of times a biker's gone alone and they've just got a cheque in the post for £200. It shouldn't work that way. Practically, it does. I mean, maybe there's an element of they don't want to open the floodgates.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a lot of it. I mean, I dread to think how many crashes like this are every single year, and it's not on video. Because I mean, this is just a tiny percentage of the shit that's on our roads, and yet nothing gets done. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and it's I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? I remember being in France last year on the bike, and riding to the south of France and back. I think we saw 2 potholes during the whole 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
You get off at Folkestone and go around the M25. It looks like it's been carpet bombed.
My 12-year-old said to me the other day, we were driving down this road, and we went to Spain a couple of years ago, and he said, "Why are the roads so nice in Spain? Why, and yet they see just as many lorries and cars on the same." Anyway. Okay, so a lot of it is the weather plays a big part of it, but it shouldn't. That's the point.
No, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't make. Also, they do such a shit job of resurfacing it anyway in the first place. If they did a decent job, then the coal. Anyway,
we can sit here and put them to right. I mean, you're absolutely right. If you go to the French Alps, I mean, I'm pretty sure they get snow up in the French Alps. Probably more than we do, and yet our roads are in this state. So, going back to this biker, does he have a claim? Yes. Whether he wants to explore that claim is a matter for the biker, and like I said, the lower the value of the case, the more likely it is that local authority will pay out. But be aware of Section 58 defences. Don't blindly just accept them, because the number of times I've gone to trial and the Section 58 defence just falls flat on its face. Flat on its face. It's something they will use to defend. But the starting point is they have an obligation to repair the highway.
Yeah.
Now that brings me on, just before we end the video, to 2 other issues. We've spoken about a defect in the road. So this is the defect in the fabric of the highway. Local authorities are not responsible for surface lying material. So let's say
gravel and
say there's a load of gravel on the road. And if the biker hit a load of gravel and fell off, which I see a lot of these cases, prima facie, the local authority is not responsible.
Sorry, just pouring coffee down my side. Sorry,
that's okay. Shall I help you clean up?
That's
No,
fine.
okay. They're not responsible. Now, I've battled this both ways. So, first of all, if you are unlucky enough to hit gravel, get a gravel sample. That might sound mental.
We had this conversation with Andrew a while ago.
Yeah.
And if it's a different to the road surface...
Absolutely, and this is it. This is the crux of the matter. So if you get a gravel sample, you can send it off, or we can send it off to an expert, a geologist, who will tell us this is the fabric of the highway.
Yeah.
Now, if it's the fabric that's broken up and sitting on top, then the local authority will be responsible because they're responsible for the fabric of the highway. It just so happens it's sitting on top of the road surface in bits. That's very different to a lorry. Let's say a quarry lorry's gone around the bend, dumped a load of gravel on the road, but the expert should be able to tell us this is not, a fabric of the highway. So that's a really important distinction. And I think bikers need to be alert to that. And they're not mad. If you see them scooping up gravel at the roadside, they're not mental. They're doing it for a purpose because their lawyers told them to. If you've got other deposits on the road, so let's talk about diesel. That's a big one. I think it's probably less of a problem now with things going electric.
Or just modern technology and
slightly
safer. Yeah.
But I mean, I've ridden in and I've seen diesel on the roundabout. Now that would not be a local authority case. That would be against the driver that's left the diesel there. Now, 99% of the time, who is that? You have no idea because they left the scene. So get photographs, get evidence, because you can still bring a claim, but it'd be against the Motor Insurers Bureau, who deal with untraced drivers. Okay. So if the driver's deposited it, you've hit it and fallen off, get some evidence, you've still got a claim, even if you don't know who the driver is. Okay, final video for today. We've actually got a case where we've found the driver. So if you watch the video carefully, you'll see that as the skip lorry goes round the bend, it drops a load of diesel on the road, and within 3 or 4 vehicles, the biker hits it, and that's it, it's game over. Quick thinking on the biker's part, this, I have to say, so he alerted me to the video existing. I managed to ride down and seize it, and on the basis of this, we were able to trace the skip driver and bring an action against the insurance company. That was a lot better for the biker as opposed to bringing an action against the MIB.
Well, thanks, Gav. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. Another legal corner ticked off. We'll be back next time with some more action-packed on-board camera footage, and we'll talk you through that as well. See you next time. Bye-bye.